Okay, good morning, everyone. We are in week 5, and the topic for this week is going to be helping clients with their feelings. So for an overview, we are helping clients respond to painful feelings for the most part. That's not entirely true. Some clients have a very difficult time with positive emotions, but usually it's going to be through the painful feelings that we get there. Also, clients are going to be conflicted. They both want to explore and they're resistant or fearful. When we work directly with feelings or affect states, we are actually bringing in a vitality. Otherwise, we're limiting the experience to our intellectual processing only. So be very patient with this. This is not an easy task for either you or for your client. Okay, research shows that change does require working at the feeling level or affect states. And clients are going to be ambivalent about this. These are, again, these go back to, we'll get this at the end of the lecture, but this goes back to really early bonding. Will I receive support? Am I inadequate? I don't want that to be revealed. Will my therapist judge me? And also, I will lose control when we don't have this early connection, we don't have this early support. It feels like we're out of control inside. Okay, so there's also, fortunately, a longing for empathic understanding. And that the compassion and understanding we provide replaces these feeling states of self-criticism or blame. We have a sense that my experience will be validated and I don't have to suffer alone. And that opening up and allowing my feelings to be known is a process of trust that I can bring to my relationships. Now, these are corrective emotional experiences. And it is when the client becomes more receptive to theoretical interventions. So there is a normal fear. Clients are going to avoid feelings because they fear the interpersonal consequences. And these are familiar and unwanted responses. Explore clients' fears rather than press them to feel a certain feeling. You want to clarify why it feels threatening rather than to push them into a feeling. Clients will project onto the therapist familiar experiences, and therapists can explore this with client. Examples of a therapist's response of how to explore on page 147. Now, also there's going to be in the projection, you are going to be seen as the internalized parent who was not supportive. And then to counter this, you can call direct attention to this. And there's a good example of this on the bottom of page 147. What are the interactional sequences which originally created the internal object? So you can think about this from a theoretical point of view, where you highlight the psychodynamic. Where did the original message belief come from? What did you hear your parents say? And then putting this together for the client allows the client to understand where their fears come from, where their conflicted feelings come from. So also with working with feelings, we're in page 148 to 151. You want to focus on what is most alive for the client, the salient feelings. So you start, if anger is coming up, you focus on the anger. If shame is coming up, you focus on the shame. So now they're talking about a way to respond to salient feelings, and that will lead you to a core concern and focus of treatment. There's an example here on page 150 where it's the feeling of being alone, which is really motivating the client, even though she's upset and angry with her boyfriend. It's the feeling of being alone. The core concern is what you want to get to. And this is going to be very challenging for even experienced therapists. And then on page 151, there's a good example of a dialogue. I honed in on toward the end, the therapist asks, what am I doing that's helpful to you? Because that really clarifies the corrective emotional experience for the client. So we want to expand and elaborate on the affect. So oftentimes we're going to be, again, moving into this thinking mode, this problem-solving mode, but going back to just clarifying what's coming up for the client regarding their affect states. And it's through that clarification that you're going to get to more accuracy. Remember, we're always wanting to get to the specificity of what the client is experiencing. Okay. Okay. So we got here. Okay, so progress comes from experience. This is super important. And it highlights a lot of what we've been talking about in this course. So Eugene Gendlin links positive outcomes to focusing on their internal experience. And Gendlin, by the way, was interested in personality change. He wasn't interested only in how we change our thinking. He really is interested in how we change our relational patterns. And how that changes a sense of who we are inside. And in order to do that, there needs to be a focus on internal experience. There's a safety that comes from this. I can know my own feelings. And the therapist's role here, this attunement that we've been talking about, is literally restorative. And helps create inward reflection. And I say literally because it happens on a physiological level, it's not just an idea or a thought. And feelings, by the way, are physiological as well as biological. So this is a really deeply felt shift that happens in the client's entire system. You can address incongruence as a way of exploring affect. So if a client is smiling when they're talking about something that they're saying is angering for them, you can point out the incongruence. And dialogue, there's a really good example on page 157. What feelings come up when you let your needs matter? And that would be the core belief is I cannot let my needs matter or I will be shamed. And this is another way to access feeling states. It's a really, really good question on page 157 in the dialogue with the client. Okay, again, we're looking at the predominant affect states. So an old wound, link it current feeling with past experiences. Multiple stressors, if a client is talking about multiple stressors, try and connect recurrent themes in all of the situations or states of mind that they're sharing with you. And then a characterological affect is a feeling state which keeps resurfacing, and you want to notice that. Shame is certainly one of those. And also a kind of a debilitating sadness can be another one, where it's not a relief. There isn't relief in the sadness. It's just confining and restricting. It's probably more like a depressive state. Those can be characterological and reoccurring. Okay, so dialogue example on page 160 is also really helpful. And here, the therapist explores affects where client feels inadequate if he expresses fears or other emotions. So this is what this characterological affect of feeling inadequate is what we want to get to, and the client will get there if you continue to reflect on the affect level. So also there might be a firing order, because there are affects that have affect states that happen in sequence. And so it's really important to review these. Anger, sadness, shame is an important one, and sadness, anger, guilt is an important one. And you know, to break the anger, sadness, shame, we want to come back and normalize sadness. It's usually an emotion that's not tolerated, which shifts into shame. Sadness, anger, guilt is when the person will start talking about guilt when they shift into thinking about others, because this is a way of protecting them from focusing on their own experience. Okay, so working with shame, you really want to focus on compassion and acceptance. That is the antidote to shame. And then you want to help the client internalize it. And that's what you do as a client internalizes you as a new self-object regarding, and that would be for object relations. Neuroscience says that the client shifts into a reflective feeling state, which allows them to internalize the experience directly through their nervous system. Another way to think about it. Okay, so we really, the book gets in a little bit into the neurology of affect regulation. Clients will present either or, most likely this way or one way or the other, with deactivation or hyperactivation, and that's something that you want to work with directly. So and also we talk about this idea of you're providing the client with a safe haven. This is where they get support for their distress and emotional needs. And then it creates for them either an internalized self-object or a nervous system, which is the result of the experience of compassion and acceptance, which then allows them to be their own person and behave in a more interdependent way with others. So a holding environment is consistently providing attuned responses. This is not perfectly providing them, but consistently. And this goes into the idea of a good enough therapist. Now, going back to these ideas of hyperactive arousal and deactivation. So if someone is hyper aroused, a lot of affect and emotion and distress, you want to help the client tolerate it. So it's a containment process. The opposite is for deactivation. You want to help identify and express and enliven these feelings. And these are really good examples on 171, where you can help the client look at when they do regulate, the experience of allowing their affect states to become more integrated is what you want to call attention to. Like that would be the corrective, another way of talking about the corrective emotional experience. So again, this is a way to bring in the corrective emotional experience. Therapists want to be liked and assume responsibility for clients' pain. So this is something that gets in the way of helping the clients sustain attention on their feelings. And also, you want to watch your own overly becoming identified with clients as they connect with their pain, because your affect state will come up. So you want to be able to know what your affect state is about as you resonate with their affect state. And then countertransference is evoked in these moments. And we're going to be talking about that later in another chapter, I believe it's chapter 8, in terms of relational themes and reparative experiences. We'll get much more into a countertransference. All right, great. So I'll look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday night.